Hi everyone, my name is Erica. I am a speech language pathologist here at All About Communication, and today I'm going to be doing a little teletherapy Tuesday, but on a Thursday. I'm going to be sharing some information about social communication, so stay tuned. So let's start with what social communication is. So social communication is how we're using our language in social situations, and it's really important because this allows us to build social relationships within our environment. So social communication is made up of many different parts. So for instance, there's things like social cognition, your pragmatics, social skills, language. And then from there, these break down even further to specific skills. So there's a lot that make up social communication. For the purpose of today's Instagram takeover, I'm just going to pick a few, and that's what we're going to talk about a little bit deeper. The first thing I'm going to talk about has to do with pragmatics. So the first one is how you're using your language to serve various communicative functions in our daily interactions. So this could be things like greeting, saying goodbye, protesting, requesting, commenting, and much more. Okay, so what would it look like for a child who's having difficulties with using language to serve various communicative functions? So this could be a kiddo having difficulties with appropriately greeting individuals. It could be a kiddo not understanding how to request appropriately. So maybe just saying, give me that versus can I have or I want. It could also be kiddos not understanding how to protest appropriately with what they don't want. If we find that the use of language for these various communicative functions are difficult for a kiddo, we will implement different strategies and activities to help develop this skill. So this could be done through something like social stories, so reading about how to request appropriately or greet or protest. And we can kind of go through and do little scenarios where we could use those skills. Next thing I'm going to talk about is still part of pragmatics, and this is the changing or adapting of our language depending on who you're talking to or where you're talking. So this could look like changing our voice based on emotions, changing our tone of voice, the loudness of our voice, and much more. So again, how would this look for a kiddo who is having difficulties with changing or adapting their language appropriately? So this could be something like not understanding when to use, let's say, an indoor quiet voice or an outdoor loud voice, as well as even just changing our tones based on the emotions that we're feeling. Clinicians, again, similar to the use of language, we're going to hone in exactly on what the difficulties are in terms of adapting or changing your language. So again, social stories is always a great way to discuss how to appropriately change or adapt your language, but also different things like identifying different emotions and how our voice might change based on that. So the last one in pragmatics that I want to talk about is understanding and following the rules of conversation as well as storytelling. So these could be things like turn taking in conversations, not dominating the conversation, understanding how to initiate conversation, reciprocate, as well as our nonverbal communication in conversations, our eye contact, proximity of how we're standing when talking to someone. So when individuals have difficulties with the following and understanding of conversational rules and storytelling, it could look like difficulty initiating a conversation, taking those turns in a conversation, so those turn takings, reciprocation, as well as remaining in the conversation, so being able to go back and forth in a conversation. Additionally, it could also be difficulty in not dominating a conversation, so only talking about what you're interested in. Also have those different things like proximity and eye contact, which may be difficult. So as I said before, clinicians will have various activities and strategies to help support the child with these difficulties. And again, as I've also mentioned probably 3 times, I would use something like a social story. So able to just discuss the basics of our conversation. So our greeting, our turn taking, our question asking. And we might also dive deeper into how to ask questions in conversation. So it really depends on the difficulties that the child is having, but there are many strategies and activities that we can use. Last thing I want to talk about is perspective taking and theory of mind, and this falls under our social cognition. So in order to engage in a social interaction, we need to be able to take someone else's perspective about their thoughts, feelings, and be able to adjust our interaction accordingly. quickly provide an example of what a difficulty would look like with perspective taking or theory of mind. So the first example that comes to my mind is unable to understand someone's point of view. So what their thought is, what they're thinking. Additionally, it could also be the inability to understand why someone is feeling a certain emotion based on a situation. First thing that I would do here is ensure that the child is able to identify their own emotions and thoughts, and then we would move into identifying other people's emotions and thoughts and get an understanding that people have different thoughts and feelings from our own. As I mentioned at the beginning, social communication does have various components and facets to it. I've only talked about a few in today's Instagram takeover, but I think it's important to know that the development of social communication does happen quite early. This can be seen in younger kiddos with eye contact, joint attention, and play skills. As always, if anyone has any questions or concerns regarding social communication or speech and language development, please feel free to contact All About Communication, and we are happy to help.